إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي لصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. وإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله وذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على
Thank you, Brother Abbas, for reciting Quran. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, you all are well. Thank you all for attending programs, and especially to everyone that is coming here on time. Inshallah, we'll get programs started with poetry recitation. So inshallah, Brother Salar, if you can recite in Farsi, please. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بار دیگر می پیچد میان میدان نغمه حل من ناصر ز کامی اتشان این عزیز پیغمبر است که بی یار و یاور است نفسهای آخر است این عزیز پیغمبر است که بی یار و یاور است نفسهای آخر است. یکی یکی ز یارانش به دشت خون نشان پرسید. زهیر و هانی و مسلم کجا رفتید؟ حسین غریب و تنها، حسین غریب و تنها، حسین غریب و تنها، حسین. زهر سوزان صحرا غریبی تنها، غریبی تنها، غریبی تنها. غرق در خون یارانش به خاک صحرا، به خاک صحرا، به خاک صحرا. آه نمانده دور و برش ز مردان لشکرش کسی غیر از اصغرش. آه نمانده دور و برش ز مردان لشکرش کسی غیر از اصغرش. تویی تو یکه و تنها میان این همه دشمن. تویی تو یکه و تنها میان این همه دشمن. به قتل چه خواهد شد خدای من؟ حسین قتیل العریان، حسین قتیل العریان، حسین قتیل العریان، حسین حسین قتیل العریان، حسین قتیل العریان، حسین. آه سرم رو بالا نمیگیرم که سر شکستم حسین جان. به روم نیاوردی که آب و روی تو بستم حسین جان. اسارتم رو به روم نیاری میاد به یاری تو آزاد سواری. تنم میلرزه ولی میدونم دستمو میگیری و تنهام نمیذاری. دستمو میگیری و تنهام نمیذاری. آه به من پناه بده حسین جان، به من پناه بده حسین جان، به من پناه بده حسین جان. آه تو نوری و من ظلماتم، مردم من توی حیاتم. از این به بعد حر حسینم تا دم جون دادن بهاتم. حالا آقا جواب میده: به غربت من خوش اومدی هر، به غربت من خوش اومدی هر. توی تو آزاده دنیا و قیامت. بگیر دوباره سرت رو بالا، تو مهمان خدا شدی سرت سلامت. آه به من پناه بده حسین جان، به من پناه بده حسین جان، به من پناه بده حسین جان. آه اومدم ای عزیز زهرا، با یارای تو هم قسم شم، شرمندم از بچه های تو، بزار مدافع حرم شم. آه اومدم ای عزیز زهرا، با یارای تو هم قسم شم، شرمندم از بچه های تو، بزار مدافع حرم شم. شفاعتم کن میخوام شهید شم، توبم رد نکن نزار که ناامید شم. میخوام به جنگم کنار جونه، رو سیاهم ولی بذار که رو سفید شم، رو سیاهم ولی بذار که رو سفید شم. آه حسین حسین عزیز زهرا، آه حسین حسین عزیز زهرا، حسین حسین عزیز زهرا، حسین حسین عزیز زهرا. Please recite salawat by Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Thank you, Brother Salar, for your recitation. Is Brother Asfar here? If not, Brother Mahdi, can you recite in Urdu, inshallah? Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
बाहर दिगर नारे सलवात एक और मतबा नारे सलवात जिस दम सुनी इमाम उमम ने सदाए हुर सीने पर हाथ मार के चिल्लाए हाय हुर, रो कर कहा रफीकों से देखी वफाए हुर, फर्शे अज़ा हरम ने बिछाई बराए हुर, खींची जो शहने आहा दिले बेकरार से, निकली तड़प के फातिमा ज़हरा मज़ार से, दौड़े इधर से रन की तरफ सईदे उमम, आए नजफ से हैदरे सफदर बचश में नम, आवाज दी नबी ने के हुर को लिए हैं हम, जिस वक्त पहुँचे शाह तो वो तोड़ता था दम, सर काटने की फिक्र में जो थे वो हट गए, मेहमा से अपने दौड़ के हजरत लिपट गए। हाय जानू पे सर है आपके या शाह बहरोबर, महबूब किबरिया हैं इधर शेर हक उधर हैं कौन ये मुअज़्ज़मा पहलू में नौगर। शह ने कहा के रोती हैं अम्मा बरह नासर, तू हश्र तक इमाम दो आलम के साथ है। मातम तेरा हुसैन के मातम के साथ है। ये सुन के गैर हो गया उस दम जरी का हाल, ज़ानुए शाहिदी पा किया हुर ने इंतकाल। खैमे के दर पे लाश को लाया अली का लाल, सब बीबियों ने खोल दिए अपने सर के बाल। ज़ैनब यूं रोई शह के फिदाई के वास्ते, जैसे बगन तड़पती है भाई के वास्ते। ज़ैनब यूं रोई शह के फिदाई के वास्ते, जैसे बगन तड़पती है भाई के वास्ते। जिस दम सुनी अल्लाह लानतुल्लाह अलल कौम ज़ालिमीन।
Thank you, Brother Matthew, for recitation. Inshallah, I'll recite an English poem in remembrance of Sayyid Zainab Salamullahi alayha. To the clouded sky has come a brilliant star, a sun which was dropped on Zahra's lap. Its light blinded even the celestial sun, for Zainab the radiant has at length come. She speaks not but with Ali's tone. The eloquence of her father sprinkles across her words. Like Zahra, she was illuminant, and her light aglowed in many hearts. For Kulthum, she was a loving sister, and for Ali, an adored daughter. At a young age, she bemoaned her mother's loss, and ever since has been holding on to patience. By God, none ever before her has showed such great endurance. Even the word patient feels proud to be associated with Zainab. What Zahra commenced, Zainab continued, and what Ali continued, Zainab ended. On her birth, the master of martyrs chanted with joy, "O Father, Allah has given me a sister." The Prophet silently wept, knowing the destined fate. In the environment that she was born, even the forbearance of Ayyub wouldn't suffice. She was the completion of a saga which began centuries ago. Ibrahim sacrificed his single child in God's path. Zainab gave away the fruits of her youth. Her own and Muhammad she sacrificed. To display her unpatched love, Zakaria prayed years to his God to give him his beloved Yahya. Zainab prayed on the eve of Ashura to her God to accept her two Yahyas. Zainab, a model for our women, whose beauty not even the sky had seen. Her trust in Allah falls beyond the might of my humble ink. My lady, if you see me right, you would realize the unconditional love that I have for you. By your faith, I have my veil, and I owe my raised status to your belief. You are my inspiration, whilst tribulations befall me. Taking your blessed name, I learn how to remain patient, for truly Zainab is Zainab. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ala inshallah, if you guys don't mind, we're just gonna wait like a minute to see if Brother Asfar comes. And if he does, then inshallah we can give him a chance to recite. If not, inshallah we'll proceed with the speech, inshallah. So if you guys can just wait like a minute or two, I'll just find out and then we can proceed. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In the meantime, just real quick, I'll just remind for some program additions that for those of you that weren't here during Jummah and may not have read the email, tomorrow night, inshallah, after Salatul Maghrib, we have question and answer with the youth, with Sayyid. And then Sunday morning, there's a sister session with Sister Samara Ahmed at 10 a.m. So please try to take advantage of those two additions to the program. Sure. Inshallah, Brother Zorez will recite for a couple minutes. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
درود بر آل محمد صلوات. शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। कौसर से तुझे छींटे देती, ज़मज़म से तुझे नहला देती। शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। शबीर ये देश पराया है, वरना मैं तुम्हारी मैयत पर। शबीर ये देश पराया है, वरना मैं तुम्हारी मैयत पर। अंबार लगाती कलियों के, फूलों का मी बरसा देती। शब्बीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। अच्छा ही किया शबीर के तुम काबे से निकल लाए, वरना अच्छा ही किया शबीर के तुम काबे से निकल लाए, वरना ये उम्मत खैमों के बदले काबे को आग लगा देती। शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। कासिम का बदन अकबर का जिगर, कासिम का बदन अकबर का जिगर, अब्बास के बाजुओं का सर। कासिम का बदन अकबर का जिगर, अब्बास के बाजुओं का सर। अब झोली में बाकी कुछ भी नहीं, होता तो तेरा सदका देती। शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। अब्बास की ख्वाहर हूँ भैया, मिल जाती इजाजत गर तेरी। अब्बास की ख्वाहर हूँ भैया, मिल जाती इजाजत गर तेरी। दरबार उलटती मैं ऐसे, खैबर की याद दिला देती। शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। शबीर तेरी गुर्बत की कसम, मैं लाश तेरी दफना देती। सलवात मोहम्मद।
أحسن. Thank you for stepping in, Zorez Bhai. Inshallah, without further ado, we'll welcome Sayyid to the member. So inshallah, if we can all move towards the front as much as possible and welcome him with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
As we've done the previous nights, this night too, or this day too, let's please recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumeen of this majlis and all of the mu'mineen wa mu'minat. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين، روحي وأرواحنا لتراب مقدم الفداء. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. For the hastening of the reappearance of our Imam, please recite another salawat on Muhammad wa Muhammad. And so that we are among the true companions, and beyond that, among the first of those who greet the Imam upon his return, please recite a louder salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So just as a recap of what we went over the past few days, we've been talking about Iman, about having faith, and how this is a different concept than what we usually take it to be. How it's different from just taking a leap of faith. No. Taking a leap of faith means that we don't know something and we just, do it, believing that inshallah it'll be true. That's not our faith. Our faith is beyond knowing. We know it to be true, and it's a heartfelt, full embodiment of the thing that we take to be true. And we talked about how faith is something that's linked intimately with having actions as well. It's almost as if when we have this faith, when we say that we believe, it comes with contractual obligations. That as if we're signing a contract saying that, okay, now that I believe, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E. I'm accepting it from the get-go. It's not two separate things. They're one and the same. And if we look at ourselves and we see that we're lacking in our actions, there's only one of two possibilities. Either we don't have faith to begin with, or we did have it, but we're deceiving ourselves somewhere. We're tricking ourselves. To make it more real, let's give an example. Suppose I want to be the best basketball player ever. I want to join the NBA, get money, be rich, all the good stuff, right? That's what my goal is. So what I do is that, I pick, who's my favorite basketball player, whoever it is, maybe it's LeBron James, Michael Jordan, whoever it is, right? And I say, okay, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to sit at home, I'm going to watch this guy play 24/7. I'm going to record all of his stats, all of his games, where he came from, where he is now. I'm going to memorize all of it. And through that, I'm going to be the best basketball player. Obviously, that's not going to work. Right? Obviously, you have to put in the work. You have to actually do things. You have to actually practice. Right? It doesn't magically just flip a switch just by having that as a goal, saying that, oh, this is what's in front of me. This is what I want to accomplish. And even if I say it, even if I look at it 1,000 times, it's not going to just magically happen. I have to actually do things. So if I say that I believe in God, if I say that I want to be a servant of God, a true servant of God, it doesn't happen just by saying it. I can say Allahu Akbar however many times I want. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, anything I want, any dhikr you choose, I could say it. But if I'm not walking the walk, if I'm not actually doing the things I'm supposed to do, let's put it more real. I could come to this majlis aza 1 billion times over, cry and cry and cry. Can beat my chest until it's red and ripped and my skin is no longer there. But if I'm not acting like Imam Hussein, then what use is it? If I'm not walking the walk, what use is it? Imam Hussein on the middle of Ashura, middle of the day, harsh conditions, heat, everything against him. What does he do? He prays. If I'm not paying attention to my prayer, how could I be a follower of my Imam? It just doesn't make sense. So this is what we've been talking about the past few days, about how Iman and Amal as-Salih, good righteous actions, are intertwined. They come with each other. Now today we want to sort of change gears, switch it up. We're going to start talking about what we should have faith in. What are we believing? And in the middle of these talks, inshallah, there will be other dimensions of Iman that come up and we'll address them, inshallah. But our main focus now has switched. Instead of talking about Iman itself, about having faith itself and its effects and all these things, our focus is now, what should we believe in? What should we have faith in? And if you ask a Muslim, anyone, what they believe in, it should boil down to one thing, and one thing alone: Tawheed, belief in one God. Now you might ask me, okay, what about the Prophet? What about Imamat, Nubuwat, Qiyamat, all these other things that we've heard? What about this Majlis Hazah? What about prayer? What about fasting? What about zakat? What about all these things? I'll tell you, each and every single one of these things goes back to Tawheed. Tawheed is the first thing, it's the last thing, it encompasses all things. It's the source of all of these things. It is all of these things. And that's the beauty of Islam. The beauty of it is that it comes from the most simple concept, Tawheed, one God. But this one simple concept, the deeper and deeper you go into it, the more depths are uncovered, the more beauty you can see, the more it'll lead you in your life. So Tawheed, we sometimes take it for granted. We say, oh yeah, one God, I'm good. Next concept, next thing. What do I do next? No, let's slow down a bit. What is this Tawheed? How is it that this one concept can be everything? Now, if we look at it, we'll try to make it more realistic to ourselves. What's the first thing? Logically, if we were to do this, right? It might not happen in real life like this because, we're brought up by our parents in a certain way, we're as kids, maybe we don't have the proper understanding of things. But if we were to look at it logically, what would be the first thing we should do when confronted with either believing in something or not believing? Right? We ask, where's the proof? What's the evidence? How do we know if this is right or wrong? And this is something important. We need to pay attention to this. Islam has an answer for it. Islam has an answer for why you should believe in God. It's not blind faith. In fact, you see in the Quran time and time again, the Quran accuses and says what's wrong with the people who just blindly follow what their forefathers have said. That's not the kind of iman that's wanted. It's not the kind of faith. It doesn't count. We have to know what we believe. Now, if we're talking about this, you can go into the deep end, right? And you can start talking about philosophical concepts. You can go into epistemology, say, okay, how do you know what you know is reality? All these things, right? And even then, Islam has an answer. I promise you, anything that you can imagine, any doubt, current doubt that you think of, that you raise in epistemology and philosophy, anything that you can think of, Islam has an answer. It's there. So that should never hold us back. These doubts, they shouldn't hold us back. But again, this isn't to say that, oh, in order to believe in God, everyone has to learn philosophy, everyone has to go into epistemology. No. And there's some people who have these doubts. Some people who are, maybe they're really deep thinkers, and because of that, they confuse themselves, right? And so they need more reassurance that God exists. But sometimes there's other people, they don't need that. They look at the skies, they look at the changing of the night and the earth, the night and the day. They're like, there's a God. Right? We read that verse together, right? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. Right? The creation of the heavens and the earth and the changing of the night and the day, they're signs. For who? For the ones who use their intellect. So God's measure of who uses the intellect are the ones who look at the signs and realize there's a God. Doesn't have to be a philosopher. Doesn't have to be a deep thinker. Doesn't have to be, all these complicated things. No. But if you are interested in these complicated things, if you want to know, if you have doubts, then don't worry. Islam has an answer for that too. But that all is not the topic for today. Right? Because all of those things require its own classes, it requires its own foundation, going through it. It's a lengthy topic. Right? It's not something that's well served from this kind of setting. Right? But just so that we know, it is there. And if we have those doubts, we should seek the answers. Just as a final thing, there's a verse in the Quran that gives us reassurance that, look, there's always going to be something. God is going to show us something. So in Surah Fussilat, the 41st Surah, page in verse number 53, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق. God will soon show them His signs. Where? On the horizons and within themselves, until they becomes clear to them that He is the truth. He is reality. He is everything. So that God is promising, look, doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter your upbringing, doesn't matter your educational status, whatever opportunity you have, God will show you His signs. We have to open our eyes. Even if we were blind, doesn't matter. God says within ourselves, there's signs too. So God is guiding. He's providing that guidance. It's available for us. But we have to take advantage of it. And the key thing here is this, that this iman, this faith, if we take it blindly, if we just do it as our fathers and our mothers have told us to do, okay, I'm going to pray because my mom said so, because my dad said so, because if I didn't do it, it'll disappoint them. If that's how our faith stays at, as a kid, that's okay. But as we grow older, it needs to change. If it stays at that level, then let's be real. What difference is it if I was brought up like that in a Muslim family, or if I was brought up like that in a Christian family, or if I was brought up like that in an atheist family? If my faith in what I believe in is limited to the reason, one reason, because my parents said so, because my society said so, because my friends would look bad on me, they would say, oh, why would you do that? They would be disappointed in me. If it's limited to that, what's the difference? Now, Allahu A'lam, maybe God will give some special mercy, right? For the ones who actually were on the truth because of the efforts of their parents, because of something. But that's like the lowest of the low. That's shooting really low, putting ourselves in the danger spot, right? That's not what we're aiming for. So what is it? We have to have faith with conviction. It can't be faith because of my parents. It has to be my faith. I have to be believing. I have to accept that there's one God. I can't just be told again and again and again and it just becomes something that I've been brainwashed. No, that doesn't count. I have to actually believe in it. It has to be mine, my belief. And God has a promise, as we said. He'll show us the signs. It's not like we're in this alone. No. On the other side, God is helping us. We shouldn't forget that. Now, when it comes beyond this, there's obviously, maybe a logical way of going through this discussions on Tawheed and, that we look at in our maybe theology books and things that we have. We're not following that order. We're not looking at it in that order. What we want to do here is try to find out, try to see, how should our relationship with God be? How should I look at him? And there's some things that we've said previously, but just as a reminder for myself. One of the things that we mentioned is that, look, this God that we have, it's an ultimate being, completely perfect. Right? Needs nothing. But he's looking at us. He's saying, look, you specifically, me specifically, I want to help you become the best you can be. Your reason for creation is nothing less, nothing more than that. And that's something that just boggles our minds. The creator of everything is saying that to us. This is why we mention in that verse that the mu'mineen, the true believers, إِذَا ذَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. When they remember God, their hearts tremble. This is why when we think and we hear about the imams, when they used to pray, when it became time for prayer, they used to start shaking, their body shakes. The color of their face changes. Because they realize who they're standing in front of. They realize the importance. That's not something easy to handle. It's not something easy to even comprehend. But when we think in this manner, we slowly get to an understanding. This isn't something that's just a minute aspect of our lives. No, this is everything. This isn't something that's just for the masjid, for at home, for the prayer rug, for when I'm fasting. No. This is the creator of everything. It's not something small, it's something big. The biggest thing I could ever imagine. Now, if we look at Nahj al-Balagha, right? Now, Nahj al-Balagha has a lot of beautiful sermons, beautiful things. Just open it up sometimes and look at the words of the Imam, Imam Ali alayhi salam. The very first sermon, the very first lines, he has a few lines I want to share with you. He says, Alhamdulillahi alladhi la yablughu minhatuhu al-qa'ilun. All praise is to God, the one that the speakers, they can't reach his praise. The worth of him, they can't talk about it. No matter how much you talk, no matter how much you say, you're not going to reach the worth of God. You're not going to be able to get encapsulated. وَلَا يُحْصِي نَعْمَاءُهُ الْعَادُونَ. The ones who count the blessings of God, they can't count it. It's beyond them. Beyond that. وَلَا يُؤَدِّي حَقَّهُ الْمُجْتَهِدُونَ. The ones who strive hard, they do all of their effort on this path, even they cannot do towards God as he deserves, as his right is. What does this mean? It means that on the other side, who we're believing in, is completely absolute, beyond us. So let's not imagine that one day we go and we say, oh God, why'd you give this to me? I deserve something better. We say, oh God, I prayed for this and that, but you gave me something else. Right? These doubts come to our minds. That, okay, why did I have this? Why am I in this position? And someone else is in such a better position than I am. But these doubts, remember this one thing. God is beyond all of this. And so if he puts us in a position, puts us in a scenario, it's for our own benefit. Because there is no one else on the other side to benefit from. God doesn't need anything. So it's for our benefit. It's another key concept. Please recite as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, if we want to go beyond just talking about this, yeah, they're nice words, they're nice things to say. But as we said, words aren't enough. And in some ways, actions aren't enough either, right? Because I can go and pray all day and night. But unless I'm truly believing and doing through belief, then those actions could be empty too. It's when these things come together, true faith and true actions. So what allows me, what is it that will get me to that point where I have an awareness of my God? Right? This again, we've proven God. We've already supposed that. That was, step one. Right? We've passed that part. Right? So we've assumed, we've proven God, we've proven he's there, we've proven he's our creator, we've proven he's the absolute. Now we want to actually have faith, have iman, become a mu'min. Not just know that, but live that. So what's that step? How do we get there? And alhamdulillah, if we look at it, alhamdulillah, God tells us what to do, right? He tells us, pray, fast, give zakat, give khums. And then you say, okay, wait, hold on. I've done these things all my life. I don't see any difference. And it might be, again, could be various reasons, but it might be because of this key thing, that when we pray, when we fast, we're not considering it properly. Let's take the example of prayer. When we pray, have we ever stopped to think about what it means that God has told us to pray at specific times? That God has said, look, at this time, you call to me. Have you ever stopped to think about it? It means that the creator of everything, who knows every moment of my life, knows everything about me, has everything in their hands, is saying that, look, you want to ask me, you want something? Ask me. I'm giving my special attention to you right now. You. That's how you go into prayer. That's a prayer that's different. That's a prayer that in the Quran says, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. There's a prayer that forbids bad deeds. Right? That's a prayer with this awareness. Sometimes we just pray and we're like, we say the words, or we're so used to it that we don't even have to think about anything. Right? It's like almost, a time to remember everything else that we've forgotten, because we don't have to think about the words because we have them memorized. It's a habit now. We just breeze through it, right? And at the end, we're like, oh, what surah did I recite? What dua did I say? Can't even remember. Or it's like this. Our prayer is measured by how long it takes for me to check my phone before and after the prayer. Right into the last moment I can, I'm checking my phone. Then I pray. And as soon as I finish the first thing, I pull out my phone. I have to check. Did someone talk to me? Someone send me a message? Right? Sometimes that's how we pray. If that's how we're praying, should we expect some magical difference to happen in us because of that? It's not going to work. It has to be done with attention. It has to be done with a purpose, intent. We have to know who's on the other side. And this is a key thing. The more we're aware of God, the more we're aware of who He is, we'll see it becomes more and more natural to do these things. And so there's a thing in Islam that when, for example, we're raising children, right? You tell them pray. The child doesn't know about God, doesn't know any about theological debates, doesn't know any philosophical thing, but you tell them pray. Right? So there's an outward expression that has no inner reality right now. Right? There's an outward expression of faith, of belief, of being submitted to God, but that obviously that child doesn't really know what they're doing. But we're encouraged to do that. Why? Because as time goes on, if we're training the child properly, that connection comes with it, and it adds to it, and it deepens that prayer further and further. The difficulty comes when we separate the two, when we say that this prayer is one thing and our beliefs are another thing. We miss the connection between the two. And it's a strange thing because it seems like it should be the most obvious connection. Right? What could be more obvious between believing in God and praying to Him? Seems like it's a no-brainer. But somehow, sometimes we just trick ourselves. But if we paid attention again, we'd realize who we're in front of. Now, in this context, there's a beautiful verse, a really beautiful verse. It's one of the verses that when you think more and more about it, it just hits you. Right? So this verse is in Surah Baqarah, number 186. It says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان. And when my servants ask of me, I'm close. I answer the call of the caller when they call upon me. Now, you might ask, okay, what's so beautiful about it? I'll tell you one thing, one Arabic grammar thing. In this verse, there are 7 times that the personal pronoun, the I, has been used. It's more than any other verse in the Quran, where God is referring to Himself as I, me, my servant. I'm responding. I am close. Call upon me. There's an emphasis there, right? No matter where we are, God is there. He's with you wherever you are. That's the God we're talking to. And if we ask Him, what does He say? I answer. It's a promise. Now, He might not answer in the way that we want, but He answers. And how He answers? In what's best for us. And so this verse, if you think about it even more and more, it makes sense why we pray. It makes sense why we're doing everything for God. Why? Because He's already promised. He's doing everything for us. He doesn't need me. We need Him. And it's this sense of need that's important. The more we pay attention and look into ourselves and understand that there's a deep set intrinsic need within us, we'll see our ability to call upon God becomes easier and easier. You look at a child. When a child needs something, when a child wants something, what do? They call to their parents. They say, "Oh, give me this. I need this." Whatever it is. When the child is younger, whatever it is, the child goes to their parents. Why? They've felt this need. And in their minds, they've realized their parents are the ones who satisfy their need, no matter what. And of course, that's, as we grow older, we realize that there's limitations to our parents. But there's someone who doesn't have limitations. Someone with no limitations. That's God. So if we realize this need within ourselves, then we realize this makes sense. Praying makes sense. Fasting makes sense. Doing all these things for God makes sense because it's not for God, it's for me. Now, there's one last verse I want to end on. It seems, it's maybe a strange segue, but there's a beautiful sort of implication here. So if we go to Surah Baqarah again, verse number 249. This verse is about in the event of, Talut and Jalut, right? When they're sort of in the story of David and the Goliath, right? And before it gets to the point where, Hazrat Dawood, goes and slays the giant Goliath, there's an event that happens. So there's a test that Allah SWT tells Talut, the leader of the army, to do for his army, to test his army. It starts with this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فلما فصل طالوت بالجنود قال إن الله مبتليكم بالنهر فمن شرب منه فليس مني ومن لم يطعمه فإنه مني إلا من اغترف غرفة بيدي. So he says that Talut tells his people that, look, you're being tested by God. And you're being tested by this river that's coming up. You've been marching, all these things, you're tired, you're thirsty, you're being tested by this river. Whoever takes and drinks from this river, they're not from me, they're not with me. You guys can go back, go home. Except for those who just take one handful with their hands. Right? Those can stay with me. So either you don't drink anything, or you just take one handful. What happens? As you might imagine, فَشَرَبُوا مِنْهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِنْهُ. Most of them drink, except for a very few. They were thirsty. They're like, it's not too important. We need our strength. We need our thirst. It doesn't matter what God does. We need it. Otherwise, how are we going to defeat this army? Right? It's a logical thing. Sometimes this logical thing, it tricks us. Right? Sometimes our logic, our mind tricks us. We say, yeah, it makes sense. I can do that. God wouldn't want that. It's easy to trick ourselves, right? Let's not fool ourselves. They knew for sure God is testing them, but they failed. Most of them failed. What happens? It says, فَلَمَّا جَاوَزَهُ وَهُوَ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ قَالُوا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا الْيَوْمِ بِجَالُوتَ وَجُنُودِهِ. They said that, when they passed by and they're like, we don't have strength to defeat Jalut and his army, right? Because only a little bit are left. Small numbers are left. So we don't have the strength to beat this great army. But God has a message. He says, قَالَ الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُو اللَّهِ. The people who truly had faith, the people who truly wanted to meet their Lord, they said this, كَم مِّن فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرًا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. How many a small party has become victorious over a large party by God's permission. It happens. If you believe God, if you believe in God, anything is possible. It's a strange thing. We believe in God. We do. But for some reason, we tend to think of God as someone who has his hands tied behind his back. And so when we face a problem, when we face a difficulty, we're like, okay, what do? I run around. I try to do as best as I can. I call my friends, I ask for money. I go to the bank. I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. Last thing on my list, I'm like, oh yeah, let me do a dua too. Why? It doesn't work like that. Again, we're not saying just sit at home and do dua and nothing else. No. Obviously, we should be doing things, acting to help ourselves. And that is God's help. But we should be doing it with this intention that, look, everything is in God's hands. If I'm going and working, what I gain is bi'idhnillah. If I'm going and studying, what I learn is by God's permission. It's not me, it's God. Sure, I might set the foundation, but it's God who gives. It's not me. How could I give when I didn't have it in the first place? It's just these realizations that make things come into place, crystallize. And again, it's easy to say all these words, for myself too. It's easy to say. The difficult thing is sitting, thinking, contemplating, believing. It's not something that just magically one day you just hear something, I listen to it, I accept it, it's done. No, it requires work. We have to really try and strive and see if we're understanding this. Let's look at the companions of the Imam. They don't magically just become companions of the Imam. It's not just, by chance that they met the Imam, they went with him, they were able to handle all that calamity and misfortune. No. There's a reason. There's something within them, a realization of what they're going towards. We who claim to be the followers, who claim to follow our Imam, we also need to realize, if we want to be like these companions, if we want to meet our Imam, be with his caravan, we can't just do it and surf by and just pass by just on the, oh, I believe because my parents said so. I pray. Why? I don't know. It's just what I was trained to do from birth. That doesn't work. We have to strive. This life is a test, it's a struggle. And inshallah, tomorrow we'll talk more about that, about what it means to be a test. But it is a test. And as like any other test, it requires struggle. And when we look at the companions of our Imam, Imam Hussein, we see the people who passed the test with flying colors. The best of the best. That's what we're aiming for. That's what we're commemorating for, to remember these people. Say, look, this Habib, this Muslim, that's who I'm aiming for. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdillah. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdillah. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdillah. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت فنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر لحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Dear brothers and sisters, today we want to commemorate some of the companions of Abi Abdullah. As we've mentioned before, the companions of the Imam, they come from various walks of life. They didn't all come from one place. And in fact, they didn't all even join the caravan at the same time. Some of them joined quite late. Some of them joined when the Imam was already in Karbala. Today we want to talk about two of those companions that joined late. One of these companions is by the name of Habib ibn Madahir. Now if we look at Habib, Habib is an old man. He's a companion, close companion of Imam Ali alayhi salam. He's one of the people in Kufa who sent a letter to the Imam to come. He's one of them who's waiting and anxiously waiting for his Imam. He's one of the ones who supports Muslim ibn Aqil. And through difficulty, his tribe, the Bani Asad, is hiding him, not letting Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad to capture him. But despite all the difficulty, despite everything that's happening, despite Kufa being surrounded, he says, I need to meet my Imam. I need to get to my Imam. No matter where my Imam is, I need to be there. And so Habib strives and he finds a way out of Kufa secretly. He gets past that blockade. On the 7th day of Muharram, it's narrated that he meets Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. What is the first thing that he says? He says, oh my Imam, I know the Bani Asad is over here, my tribe. I know these people. If I go to them, I know I can convince some of them to come here too and fight with you, to support you. Give me permission to go. So the Imam says, okay, you can go. Habib goes. He talks to them. He's able to convince maybe 40 people, maybe 30 people to come back with him. But Umar ibn Sa'd, he hears what's happening and he sends an army to prevent them. And when they see this army, all of these 40, they scatter. And so Habib returns empty-handed. And we can imagine, how would it feel knowing that you promised your Imam that, look, I can get you some more support. I know you're in dire need. But you come back empty-handed. You're not able to fulfill what you desired. But the Imam is gracious. Do you know what the Imam says? He says, Alhamdulillahi kathira. All praises for God. Many times over. Now the same Habib is one of the first to go onto the battlefield when it's those individual fights. He fights valiantly and valiantly until he's knocked off of his horse. And he's struck from behind. And as he's struggling to get up, a person comes up with a sword and strikes his head off. Now there's a narration of what happens in Kufa. There's a narration that says that when the soldiers came to Kufa after Ashura, there's one soldier who's coming into Kufa, and on his saddle, as you know, the soldiers would each carry a head of the companions, one of the companions, showing their devotion to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, saying that you need to reward me. I did something in this battle. One of these soldiers, he sees that there's a young child following behind him. He asks, why are you following me? The young child doesn't respond at first. But he insists. Eventually the young child says, that head you're carrying, that's my father's head. Can I have my father's head to bury it? You know what the soldier responded? It's narrated, he said, if I give you this head, how am I going to get my reward from Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad? La'natullah ala qawmi zalim. Now there's another companion we want to commemorate. There's another companion that came late to the caravan of Imam Hussein. Now this companion didn't come late because he couldn't come. He came late because he had a crisis of faith. We're talking about Hur ibn Yazid. Hur is the first person who stops the Imam. And he's also one of the first who becomes Shaheed with the Imam. And this, we might ask, how is it that Hur went from here to there? How is it? And maybe it's because Hur showed at least two moments of character. Two moments where He showed he truly understood who he was before. When he stopped the Imam, and the Imam, seeing that Hur and his soldiers were thirsty, he gives them water. The Imam gives them water, gives their horses water. It comes to namaz time. The Imam asks Hur, are you going to pray with your soldiers? It's namaz time. Hur says, no, I'm going to pray behind you. He recognizes who's more worthy to lead this prayer. That's one time. After this prayer, after Asr, it comes to a point where Imam Hussain says, you know, we should leave this place now. Our caravan will go somewhere else. Hur stops the Imam. The Imam says to him, ثَكَلَتْكَ أُمَّكَ مَا تُرِيد. May your mother grieve upon you. What do you want? What does Hur say in response? He says, if it was anyone else among the Arab, anyone else who said this to me, I would respond in kind to them. But what can I do? I know who your mother is. I know who your mother is. I can't say anything bad about her. I can't say anything about her. This is perhaps the second moment where Hur shows his character. Now on the night of Ashura, Hur is a different person. He's uneasy. He doesn't know where to go. He's going this way and that way. The people see him, it's narrated, the people see him and say, Hur, you're the most courageous of soldiers. We know that you, if someone asks us who is the most brave amongst all of the Arab, we would say you. Why are you uneasy? What does he say? He says, on one side I see heaven, on one side I see hell. This is what I'm in between. And so what happens on the morning of Ashura? Hur goes. He tells his son, oh my son, ya bunayya, all of these things in this world, all of these things that you see, it's going away. Dhahila, it's gone. All of these pleasures of this world is gone. We want to give you success. نلحق بالحسين لأن نفوز بالسعادة. Let's go to Hussein. Over there we'll achieve victory. Over there we'll be successful. So Hur goes with his head downwards, embarrassed, ashamed. He goes to the Imam and he says, oh my Imam, oh Hussein, is there a way for my tawbah to be accepted? Hal turali tawbah? Do you see that my tawbah could be accepted? Now imagine ourselves in our Imam's place. This is the person who stopped us. This person who can be maybe said that this is the person why we're here in this place in Karbala. Person who made the children cry. Person who made the women frightened. What would we say? What does our Imam say? He says, Hur, your tawbah is accepted. Don't put your head down, put your head up. This is the Ahlul Bayt. We're the Ahl Karam. We are the people of generosity. Put your head up. Don't be ashamed. You made a mistake, it's okay. You realize your mistake. Put your head up. It's narrated. There's one report where Hur says, I want to go. I have one request from you, O Hussein. I want to go and meet the lady Zainab. And he says, Imam grants this request. It's reported that Hur says, Ya Zainab, I'm the one who caused your tears. I'm the one who caused the children's tears. Will you accept my apology? This is the Ahl Bayt Haram. They're not going to reject anything. She forgives. Hur asks for permission to go to the battlefield. What does the Imam say? He says, Hur, you're our guest now. How can I let you go? You're our guest now. But Hur insists. He goes, he fights, he rebukes the enemy until he also is struck down from his horse. He also is injured. And in his last moments, he calls his Imam. He calls Imam Hussein. Imam rushes to him. He puts his head in his lap. He wipes his face from the dirt and the blood. What does the Imam say? It's reported, he says, Bakhin, Bakhin, ya Hur. Anta hurrun kama sumiyat. Fi dunya wal akhirah. Rejoice, Hur. You are free like you've been named. Free in this world and the next. But oh my Imam, what will happen when you fall on these lands? What will happen when you fall down? Who is it that is there to wipe the blood off of your face? Who is it that's there to give you comfort in your last moments? There is no one remaining. There is no one left except for these dhalameen that visit pain upon you in the family, in the Ahlul Bayt. على لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He puts this message to our Imam. That we look at ourselves and we know that we've made mistakes. But we know our mistakes are not to the extent that we've made the Ahlul Bayt cry. We haven't made the children fearful. And so we know there's a chance for us to be forgiven. There's a chance for our Imam to say, it's okay. You can join me. You can join my caravan. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the opportunity that He granted to Hur, He grants to us as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this majlis, these tears, are seen as a link, as a way for us to become more faithful, more connected to our Imam, both in heart and in action. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
Thank you, Sayyid. Inshallah, we'll go outside for Latmiya.
أنت والينا في كربلاء يا حسين أنت هادينا بايعناك يا إمامي أنت والينا في كربلاء يا حسين أنت هادينا Abbas, 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 महफूज काफिला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है महफूज काफिला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है महफूज काफिला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है महफूज काफिला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है नूर कारवां में कमारिया है इस नूरी कारवां में नूरी अमारिया है नूरी अमारिया में नूरी सवारियां है नूरी सवारियां है सर पर अलग खुला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है महफूज अब्बास जो जिंदा है नाम है रमो तमचना हट हट के है गुजरता नाम है रमो तमचना हट हट के है गुजरता पहले में बाबा के तय हो रहा है रास्ता तय हो रहा है रास्ता क्या शान दबदबा है अब्बास जो जिंदा है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है महफूज है अब्बास जो जिंदा है अब्बास जैसे भाई सालार कारवां है बोले हुसैन मुझको फिर कोई हम कहाँ है अब्बास जैसे भाई सालार कारवां है बोले हुसैन मुझको पर कोई हम कहाँ है फिर कोई हम कहाँ है हर गम की ये दवा है अब्बास जो जिंदा है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है ज़ैनब हया की मलका कुलसूम और रुक़ैया ज़ैनब हया की मलका कुलसूम और रुक़ैया लैला रबाब फरदा कुबरा विरासती नफिजा हर बीबी पलता है अब्बास जो जिंदा है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अभी दूर करबला है अब्बास जो जिंदा है प्यासे सलामत मोहम्मदी Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John. Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John. Suleiman Yagnashali, Suleiman Yagnashali, Yaki Perahane to Rabatandas. Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John. Agar paida pulang se baparam Kame tidagande soyamora Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John. Hussain John, 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 Darandam Zainab Begum Bidayezam Ravana Shasta Chashma Nidhar Shetaban Rastavan Zulilana Asuye Tatnagada Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John. Sadale Ashalale Amadashko Toshutas Kafarala Ashtapatos Pasole Hansadashan Daralan Hussain John, Hussain John, Hussain John. Telegram Karnale Jomura إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله